You ever witness a moment so strange, so unexpected, that it rewired something in you? That's what happened the day I watched a rich man freeze in the middle of a high-end cafe because a black waitress dared to speak to his mute daughter without saying a single word. It started like any other Tuesday at Halcyon and Pine, the kind of cafe where cappuccinos cost more than a tank of gas and everyone pretends they're not watching each other. The usual crowd was there, lawyers talking too loud, influencers pretending to read books, and at the center table, the Hartley family. Graham Hartley, billionaire investor, polished shoes, tailored suit, and the kind of stare that made waiters nervous. His wife, Caroline, icy brittle, always 2 seconds away from snapping. And then there was Ivy, little girl, 8, big eyes, no words. They said she stopped talking after a fire 2 years ago, trauma doctor said. Therapy hadn't worked, and honestly, it seemed like her mother barely tried. Caroline talked about her like she was a broken appliance. The silence is a blessing, she once said loud enough for the whole room to hear. Anyway, that afternoon, Ivy was sitting there drawing quietly with a crayon on her napkin, while Caroline complained about the floral arrangements being too common. And that's when Kendra walked up. Kendra Summers, 28, black, deaf, been working there for years. Most people didn't even learn her name. They just pointed at menus and looked through her like she was part of the furniture. But not Ivy. When Kendra brought their drinks, she paused, noticed the girl. Then she signed. Just a gentle hello, a question. And Ivy, this kid who hadn't spoken in years, lit up. Her eyes grew wide, and then she smiled. A real one. First time I ever saw it. Caroline nearly knocked over her latte. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed. Kendra took a small step back, hands still half raised in mid-sign. I asked her name, she signed again. "She doesn't need whatever that is," Caroline snapped, waving a hand like swatting a bug. "She's in real therapy, not playing charades with the staff." The whole cafe went silent. Everyone was listening, watching. Graham looked up from his phone for the first time in 20 minutes. Ivy just stared at Kendra, then slowly mimicked the sign back. Caroline's face twisted. "This is unacceptable," she barked. "Get the manager, now." But Kendra didn't flinch. She didn't drop her gaze, just stood there, calm, steady, like she'd seen the scene play out 100 times before. And in truth, she had. What no one knew, what I didn't know until later, was that Kendra had been recording moments like this for years. Little acts of cruelty from the city's elite. Comments they thought no one would care to remember. She'd been building something. Quietly. Patiently. And this moment, it was the missing piece. Because just as Caroline was mid-rant, Ivy tugged on her dad's sleeve and whispered voice barely there. "She's nice." Graham dropped his fork. Caroline went pale. The girl spoke, and the first words she said in 2 years were about the waitress her mother wanted fired. But Caroline wasn't touched. She was furious. "She's manipulating her," she screamed. Using some trick language. She spoke, Caroline, Graham said, stunned. She spoke. "That woman is unqualified. I want her removed." Kendra just stood there silently reaching into her apron and gently tapping a small recorder hidden inside. A few days later, the same cafe, same family, different vibe. Caroline acted like nothing happened. Graham kept checking his phone. But Ivy brought a notebook. She scribbled signs. Practiced. Waited for Kendra like she was the only reason she wanted to be there. And when she saw her, she signed friend. That was the moment something shifted in Kendra's eyes. Like she knew this wasn't just about her anymore. Fast forward 1 week. The cafe hosted the monthly meeting of the Fairfield Women's Philanthropy League, chaired of course by Caroline Hartley. All pearls and perfume, laughing too loud about helping the less fortunate. Caroline stood to speak. "We must be cautious," she said, "about where we direct our kindness. Not all charity is constructive. I recently had an encounter with a cafe employee who exploited my daughter's disability for attention. And then just like a movie, Kendra walked in. Not in her apron, not with a tray. In a tailored blazer, laptop in hand. Right behind her, Dr. Alan Pierce, civil rights lawyer, voice like thunder in a courtroom. "Ladies," he said calmly, "we've prepared a short presentation." Caroline looked like she'd swallowed glass. The projector flickered on. First slide is still from the cafe security footage, Caroline mid-scream. Next, an audio clip, her voice crystal clear. She's manipulating my daughter with cheap tricks. Gasps all around. Then another clip, a phone call. Caroline's voice again telling Ivy's school principal to keep her away from staff like that, who don't understand appropriate social class boundaries. The room went dead silent. And then Ivy walked in, tiny, shaking a little, but determined. She stood next to Kendra and began to sign. My name is Ivy. I stopped talking because people yelled. Kendra taught me another way to speak. She is my friend. Caroline tried to stand, tried to cut her off, but Margaret Sinclair, one of the senior committee members, held up a hand. Enough, she said. Caroline, I think you should resign. You can't be serious. You tried to humiliate a woman for helping your child, Margaret said. That's not charity. That's cruelty and pearls. Caroline stormed out. Graham followed silent. The rest of the room turned to Kendra and applauded. That afternoon, Kendra was offered a position as the cafe's director of inclusion. A full-time role. Benefits, autonomy, respect. The cafe, it changed. Became a hub for diversity workshops, sign language programs, community events. Ivy started teaching signs to other kids. Became a tiny advocate without even knowing it. And Kendra. She took her 5 years of recordings and helped launch the Equal Grounds Initiative, an organization that now audits upscale establishments for discriminatory behavior. You can't hide behind luxury anymore. As for Caroline, she moved out of state, tried to rebuild her image, but her past follows her like a shadow now. She once said silence was a blessing. Funny. The silence is what cost her everything. But the real ending. One Sunday afternoon, Ivy sat at the cafe signing stories to a group of kids. She looked up at Kendra and asked, "Can people like my mom change?" Kendra smiled gently. They can, if they want to. But it starts with listening. So now I ask you, have you ever seen someone use kindness like a weapon? Ever watched prejudice unravel in the face of truth? Drop your story in the comments. Let's talk about what justice really looks like when it's signed, not shouted.